guys, this is the SeattleRingHunter. Today we're actually out at the Sammamish River behind me here in Kenmore, and we just got a call recently from a gentleman that was with his buddy that didn't have as much experience in a kayak, and right out here they lost their kayak. They tipped it over. They still have the kayak, but it tipped over, and they actually lost a very important fly rod and reel, a couple other reels, a iPhone that they're looking to get back for insurance purposes, and a few boxes of tackle that went along with it. So come along with me for the hunt. We're gonna get geared up. We're gonna come out here. We're gonna take the dive scooter out. Very low flow right now. It's flat water. Really good situation. If we look up and down, we can see that the not a lot of activity going on today. The weather has cleared up a little bit. We've had sprinkled showers coming and going throughout the day. A real nice, exciting afternoon here. We're gonna go ahead and get geared up. Really nice, easy access. So let's go out there and see if we can find out how far down. He was in line with this boat launch here. We're gonna see how far down it actually might have drifted some of these pieces, but I'm pretty certain that they're probably just sitting down there in the bottom all hung up. Let's go get it. I will say that my success on a lot of these recoveries are based on a lot of my training, personal experience, and special tools that I carry. You see me pulling in there with my cart with the Guardian flag and float with the dive flag there for protection, for visibility. It's also very helpful to get equipment out over the water to where I need to set it up. Also out there with the dive scooter, the Piranha, which is very beneficial. Here we have our Sand Shark, which is actually built for maintaining and holding jet skis in sandbars, and I have adapted it with that round disc that you saw in there. You'll see in a little bit here. Those are actually 3 cutting boards that have been turned into circles and made like a sandwich. So it's a swivel area to keep a piece of it's actually a paracord, so it's a swivel for 360. And when I deploy it down on the bottom, as you see, because it's got a helical coil screw on the bottom of it, you'll see me here in a moment as I actually start to deploy that. I've actually dropped it down to hold my dive flag overhead. So I have a down line, which is there in the left hand. At the bottom of that, which is just resting at the bottom currently, is the actual Sand Shark anchor system. And I'll go down here and I will actually screw that into the bottom of the lake bed, which is sandy in this condition, and other lakes and Puget Sound I've actually been able to screw it in without any trouble at all. It has a very good bite. It also has an extending post coming out of the bottom like a tripod leg, which gives me that round piece there that you see. Is very critical to have that extra couple of feet from the bottom, so once this gets screwed into the bottom of the lake bed, I can attach my dive reel, which is a 100-foot line that I have, and that actually keeps it from dragging across the bottom. If I were to do a circle search in open water in a lake, I can go 360 degrees and let out a little bit of line each time I come around to a certain point, expanding the circle grid. Here in this channel, which is a small, slow-flowing, meandering river, more like an expanded stream, but it is referred to as the Sammamish River. But it's very far from aggressive at this point. Is very slow moving. I can go left to right from shore to shore and then let out another 5 feet on the line and continue searching. I have prepped the dive line, or the dive spool thumb reel that you're going to see here in a moment, just like cave divers and scuba divers use to deploy a sausage, you know, when they want to deploy that to the surface. Same setup there, but I've actually marked it every 5 feet, and I put a label on it with some heat shrink tubing and a black Sharpie pen. I've written the distance from the spool, from the bolt snap that I'm actually using at the Sand Shark, and every time I deploy a little bit of it, it's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way up to 100 feet. So at any point, if I have to stop the search, or I want to take a mental note of how far into the search we are, if we had to remove everything and come back later and start again, we have a better idea and understanding, being smart about the areas that have been searched and that haven't been searched, or where we found certain things. Right now, we're just a tiny bit upstream from where the canoe tipped over to drift in to see if we want to catch the debris field. And as we watch this video, you'll see that, as we suspected, most of these items flowed downstream a bit, but you have to work yourself into them, not knowing where they could be. There, I'm putting a double-ended bolt snap on, and the appropriate way of doing that, wrapping the line around just to make it secure, which is a common practice with tech divers, and that's something you can look up online if you want to know more about that. It's just not click it on and you want to potentially get snagged and lost or disconnected. That would not be very beneficial to the dive. The dive scooter, once again, it's going to help me maintain my energy and to be able to get back to my starting point. Even with a little bit of current and you're down there working back and forth, it could be quite a bit of a challenge trying to get yourself back to the starting point. So you have to be smart about these things. If you're going to put yourself in these positions, you want to be fully have a full thought process and a training practice of going through this stuff to understand what you need to do to get back, instead of having to get out tromping through neighbors' yards and private property with a bunch of dive equipment on and trying to walk all the way back up there. Would just be exhausting and pointless. So right now you can't see too much because of the visibility of the water, but I am actually able to see the bottom of the water with my dive light, and some of these clips it doesn't really show that so well, but there is a process of where I'm basically just kind of skimming the bottom of the lake, going back and forth, side to side, side to side, and you can kind of barely see in this clip there just a little bit of the bottom. It actually doesn't translate through the video as well as when I was out there. Now, obviously, later on in this video, I do make a recovery of a couple of key pieces of items that they were looking for, so it was successful, I will say. Like I said, the Paralens dive camera is a really good camera. You can only do so much when it's there. So right now I'm indicating 525, so 75 feet. I was just looking at the line marker. So we're 75 feet from the sand shark downstream, and at this point I'm making a mental note of that because I just located one of the fishing poles that the young men had lost from their canoe. So it went basically 75 feet and landed in the bottom and just rested on the bottom. So we have that there, and I didn't quite catch the moment in this edit of where the phone was recovered, but shortly it was after, just in a moment here, you're going to see that as I'm kind of working this fishing pole a little bit, I've got a dive spool in my left hand, the dive light, I've got the fishing pole, I've got my dive scooter. By design and by practice is actually clipped onto a waist harness, so it takes the pressure off of your arms and shoulders when you're actually operating it, so it's not going to get away from me. So it's down there. This is when I found one of their beach towels, recovered that, so I'm definitely in the debris field. And at some point shortly after this is when I felt something touch my left leg through my dry suit, and I reached down and actually recovered one of their cell phones that they had lost, just laying down there. At another point, there was enough visibility, I'd actually found a small package of fishing hooks inside of a Ziploc retail packaging, just laying down there on the top of the sand. So there was actually a very reasonable expectation of finding stuff with the visibility. It wasn't like it was a complete blackout or, silted out conditions. And here I am recovering the items and bringing them back up to the surface. Just a little bit of an explanation of what was going on there, a little tougher to kind of understand the process and what's going on. The biggest thing I want to convey is that when you call me the SeattleRingHunter here in the Seattle, Washington area, I've got a lot of special tools. There's been a lot of years of practice and diligent thought in analyzing these situations of lost item recovery. You may have a buddy that's a scuba diver. You may have a old friend that's got a old metal detector they bought for the kids in the closet. You may have lost something. You're going to try what you're going to try and see if it works for you. But when it comes down to it, if you really want to get a lot of these items back, you need to find somebody that's got some experience at doing this and have been through this a few times to make it a successful attempt, or a worthy attempt at trying to get some of this stuff back. Some of these items are a little bit larger. Recreational divers may be able to find some of these things, but it's going to be difficult if they're not geared up already and search minded. Just because they're a recreational diver doesn't mean that they're actually a lost item recovery specialist, and they're not in the mindset of how to do search patterns, simply because it's not because they're not capable. It's just because they don't go out every single dive looking for something and setting up these routines. Hey guys, SeattleRingHunter just got done with their first dive. We're going to close it off for this evening. We'll probably come back out tomorrow for an additional dive. We did use the sand shark sitting right down here. It is actually quite sandy out there. This sand anchor actually worked really well. This thing actually held my position with the 360 grid on it. We used the dive spool and we hooked onto it, and we went 5 feet back and forth, let another 5 feet out, went side to side, let another 5 feet out, side to side. We were probably anchored just a little bit before this, as I said earlier, about right in here. I went out to about 85 feet when I found the first item, which was a little bit ways just down there a little bit. So we covered this whole area, and with that, we actually fortunately recovered so far this Garcia reel that he had. Found the drop zone. These are all found pretty close. Some hooks. We actually located the one iPhone out of 2 that we were actually looking for. The Android phone that was lost, he had no concerns about, but this one here, they want to use it for insurance, so we got it back. And I have to tell you guys, believe it or not, when I actually picked up the fishing pole, my knee, my leg touched against something in the bottom, and it was hard, and it caught my attention. It wasn't just the soft sand. And I put my hand down there to see exactly what that was, because I knew this was like kind of like the debris field of where the kayak, or the canoe, I'm sorry, had tipped over, and where the items had eventually rested. I knew that there would probably be more items in that area, and sure enough, it was this phone. I did not go down there because of the initially I want to assess what it looks like down below, and it's actually pretty decent visibility at the bottom, but it's only about for like 1.5 feet, 2 feet with the dive light. You don't get to see very much, so you're pretty much crawling literally foot by foot, and you're using a light to see as much as you can going down there side to side. So I did not take the metal detector down. It was just been too clunky to take that down there for this level of search. We're looking for larger items. The fly fishing reel is in a kit that's zipped up in a case. It is probably about 3 to 4 feet long in length, so we're looking for larger items. It's going to be resting on the top. There's a tiny bit of flow at the top here. Down below, when I'm resting on the bottom with my knees, I'm not even moving. But you get up in the water column a little bit and you will carry on. With that being said, having the dive scooter is extremely helpful. It's good for safety and good for my endurance and good for everything. It's reassuring to have that, because once you start going down, you can use the dive scooter to come back up to your start point and get all your equipment out of the water without having to really beat yourself up, fight it, get out, tromp through somebody's. I mean, you can't pass all this. You'd be going through people's yards and around the corner just to get back up in the water to get your stuff. If you blew downstream a little bit, you'd have to get out and come back around. You'd be so tired to be like, forget it. You need some assistance. You need a propulsion and some power and a whole lot of ingenuity and the willingness to get out there and get at it. It was only about, I think it was about 8 feet, 5 to 8 feet or somewhere in that range. It was, I don't even think it was up to 8 feet, but maybe close to that. I have to look at my dive log again. It was not very deep at all, so you get plenty of time. Steel 100 tank, you're getting good time because you're such shallow depth. But I am so super excited about this, to get this phone back. That was pretty exciting. SeattleRingHunter, cheers guys. If you've lost your ring or special item of value, please get in touch with me at the SeattleRingHunter.com as soon as possible, so I can arrange to do a search for you.